the little considered program of geoengineering or aerosol geoengineering, also called strategic aerosol geoengineering or solar radiation management. The little known program is in operation today over Chattanooga. Look to the east sky and you will see the remarkable phenomenon contrails, which is what they're not actually. They are in the common parlance they are called chemtrails. But I don't like that terminology because it sounds like I have an argument to make against it. And maybe if we really love local economy and the free markets, we will find a way to be resigned to being treated this way. We had similar activity in a drop off, but this month we've had activity on the 4th, the 11th, the 10th, well, the 10th and the 11th, the 14th, the 20th, and now today we are recipients of the geoengineering program, which is sky management or weather management, a program that has been going on at least since the 60s in various permutations and various rise and falls of intensity. In September, we were ignored, and it could well be that the strato tankers that are involved in this program and the contract jets were busy doing things over the oceans as there were hurricanes in the offing, and they had to lay their dust elsewhere. In September, a very light month for geoengineering over Chattanooga and Hamilton County, we were treated on the 2nd and the 11th. Now, prior to that, according to my record, we were heavily subject. In July, for example, we were subject to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days. And I'm trying to find the month in my calendar, which was just intense beyond belief. Could have been April, where we had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 days, about a third of the days of the month in which there were heavy treatments. Actually, it was March 2006. We had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 days, maybe 17 or 16 days if I miscounted, of intense geoengineering over the skies of the county. These are the dripping trails that you see. They are not water condensation, as Bob Colby at the Hamilton County Chattanooga Air Pollution Control Bureau would tell you. They are, in fact, deposits of coal fly ash, according to the research from Dr. Raymond Herndon in San Diego. They're also called reverse emissions, or policy skies, if you want to use my nomenclature, or even sky tattoos. They're more important to the national government by their own concession than Islamic terrorism, and they reflect a pathological disregard for the common people. That would be for you, because coal fly ash contains many poisonous and toxic elements. It is not called toxic waste. EPA a couple years ago determined that coal fly ash is not, but it is subject to regulation when it's on the ground, including the control for dust. These are they're in wet ponds, and they're wet so that the coal fly ash, which is ultra fine, finer than talcum powder, will not take to the air. But it can't take to the air when it's regulated by EPA. But when it's under the charge of the national government and the federal military, it is readily dispensed and disposed of in the sky. So look at these gigantic trails over the skies of Chattanooga, and ask yourself: is this simply the result of condensation, which is created when old-fashioned jet engines, not used anymore, ran at very high altitudes, at 40,000 feet or so, very cold, and there is water droplets are formed when the air passes through the very hot jet engine. That's not what we're seeing today. We are seeing something that's really marvelous, and we perhaps if we could just ignore the health damage to people by breathing this official pollution, we could say it's truly a marvelous thing, because the filling of the atmosphere over Chattanooga and elsewhere affects water condensation, it affects water movements, it affects storms, whether storms drop or not, whether they're dissolved. It affects the direction of the wind, and large systems across our country and across other people's countries are controlled by these programs that they're highly secret. They're part of national security. We know it's a national security issue because we're told that weather management and the war on climate change, as it has been nebulously called of late, is a national government priority. So don't think that our national government is just full of hot air and just full of loud talk. Well, it's been involved in weather management for a long time. And by my count, now about 3 or 4 years ago, the program intensified, and I got involved. Your host here, David Tulis, got involved in covering this as a news story a couple years ago, when we had, after a very mild and sunny day, after which I had gone to a funeral. I remember in short sleeve shirt, we had a snowstorm the next day. Okay. Or if I'm not remembering my report exactly, but within that week, there had been a freak snowstorm downtown, covered at the Chattanooga Times-Free Press, photos from the Times-Free Press window, the great window there overlooking ML King Boulevard. So we are to be thankful for the good people looking out for us. But I'd say that given the national government's history of experimentation on military populations and poor black tenement dwellers in St. Louis back in the 50s, and many other cases, that we are to suspect that their efforts always lead to the offloading of private risk onto the public, and the absorption somehow of public gain to the private side. So in other words, you socialize the risk and you privatize the profits. That's the main paradigm of the national government's operation. And I think that the program's intensifying, though, as I say, here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, though, as I say, the treatments have dropped off lately. If Donald Trump's elected, will the treatments stop altogether? I don't know. Donald Trump is, like Hillary, an establishment figure, and though he is very much opposed by every living Yankee president, he is still an insider, and took part in a Catholic dinner the day after the most recent debate. And you should see his comments. They are hilarious comments made there next to the bishop, and Mrs. Clinton just taking it all in as she's roasted by him. He said that when she passed to her to have her time at the mic, she said, "Pardon me," and he said, "Well," he looked at her. He said, "Well, if I'm elected president, I'll consider it." And other such comments as that. Very, very funny. And yet you get the sense, and watching that video, it's about 5 minutes. You watch that video, and you get the sense how much that Clinton and Mrs. Clinton and Trump are very chummy. They move in the same circles. They donate to the same nonprofits, some of which are, of course, bloody, like Planned Parenthood. And there's a kind of careless throwing around of money, donating to candidates left and right, and not playing particulars on parties or even causes, but just giving to those in authority through foundations and charitable grants. like mind on many things, though not all. Though not all. The Trump bus that features possibly some members of his family will be in Chattanooga this evening. And it's, let's see what I have here. A note at the Chattanooga happening. It's expected to be at 5:30 at the Trump headquarters at 1926 Gun Barrel Road behind the Essex Design Center. You know what that is? That's on right near Hamilton Place Mall. Trump supporters are invited to greet the bus for a short rally sponsored by the Hamilton County Republican Women. Now, there is a heavy early voting going on, suggesting strong interest in the success of one candidate or aversion for the other, with, of course, some voters in there voting on principle for, say, a constitutional candidate, such as Darrell Castle, who is a write-in candidate in Tennessee, write-in candidate from the Constitution Party. Thus far, according to election commission figures noted at Chattanooga.com, as of Saturday, there were 1,900 ballots received by mail, and there were 5,157 who turned out at early voting sites Wednesday, 5,000 roughly on Thursday, and about 5,000 on Friday, and 3,800 on Saturday. There are 4 sites that to which you can go if you wish to avoid the great rush on Election Day. The Brainerd Recreation Center, it's open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. The Eastwood Baptist Church on 4300 Ooltewah Ringgold Road, that's Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6. The North River Civic Center on 1009 Executive Drive, that's in Pack-Hixom, 10 to 6. And then also at the Election Commission office on River Terminal Road off Amicola, that's open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday. But today, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Open a little earlier and open a little later. So that's if you wish to vote early against the candidate of your choice, or alternatively for the candidate of your choice. Or if you're not making calculations of the pragmatics for voting for a man of principle, that would be perhaps, as I would suggest, a member of the Constitution Party at the head of that ticket, which is Darrell Castle, a devout Christian, Tennessee man, no less. His partner is a very conservative man out of Utah. And this is a party that stands for constitutional government. Well, this is David Tulis, and we are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, live on YouTube at the Hot News Talk Radio channel, and also on Facebook. I am on Facebook. I'm being told that I have a weak connection on Facebook, so I'm not sure if that's progressing out on that platform. But the show, nonetheless, you can hear it there, and let's hope for the best on the man who's not in his car or his vehicle moving about, or not listening by earbud at his desk, or doing something requiring great fidelity of the detail, in which if he has only 7% cranial capacity available, not taken up by his obligations to his boss or his enterprise, he can devote that to hearing my program. My name is David Tulis, and we are the Sean Hannity, Colin Cowherd, and NASCAR station. NFL only here, NCAA here only, and not at other places. I've been thinking about the whole skimming economy, and how it is that we are subject to great passions. We are subject to deep interest against us by the exploitative class. Now, Bernie Sanders, in his left-wing campaign, where he sought in the end to complain about the financial establishment, but to remedy the situation by having more statutes, right? More compulsory funded benefits for students and homeowners and other people. His answer is not drifting away or shifting away from establishment problems, right? The Bernie Sanders solution is just, well, we need to have more of the same. We need to have more government programs. We need to have a single payer system in healthcare insurance, rather than have what we have now is the insurance industry bought the marketplace by supporting Obamacare, and now is stiffing the marketplace, making it necessary to call for a takeover and a bailout by the national power in Washington, so that we can all have affordable insurance. Right? If it's free, well, I guess it's affordable. in that line of thinking. But there is going on a kind of neocolonialism, and the neocolonialism is you can see the underlying violence in police violence. I'd like to connect the two. Police violence is a picture of the neocolonial system. Now, colonialism is something we understand because we had colonies. We were a part of the colonies of the American colony of the Parliament, and there was a war fought over the government of those 13 colonies. And the issue was, should the king govern? The king had left matters to Parliament, and the colonialists said, well, we have a covenant with the king. The Parliament has no duty, no authority to tax us. And there was then a war to assert the old covenant with the king. But then it became a movement of independence, and there was formed the Confederation of Colonies. And then there was a coup in 1787 in Philadelphia, bringing about a kind of atheistic national power, a kind of deistic national power. If you read Gary North's book, Conspiracy in Philadelphia, which I'm hearing now. Now, it's a follow-up volume on his earlier edition, much more detailed edition, called Political Polytheism, which he says underlies the American legal experiment in constitutional government. But neocolonialism has as its main concept the core exploiting the periphery. We, at the time of the founding, we were the periphery, and we were being exploited by the core in England. And what happened there was it was forbidden for us to trade with Holland or France or other countries, Belgium, Norway, or Sweden. We were not allowed to trade with them, and so there was a very brisk traffic in illegal business, which went through the East Hebrides. In fact, there is a great story called, I think it's called The First Shot or something like that. And I've forgotten the author, and it pointed out that this was a lifeline for the Americans. But we were subjected to mercantilism. Mercantilism is a system of government-managed trade, like what we have now under the Republicans and Democrats, through trade agreements where the government plays business partner to exploit other markets and other players for the interest of local, domestic, if you will, American tax-paying industry. So the core exploits the periphery, compelling it to buy its goods. Right, that was what happened here. And that exploitation of the periphery by the core occurred again prior to the war to prevent Southern independence, where the steel interest and the financial industrial interest in the North wanted the South to buy all of its goods by force, and erected a huge tariff, the moral tariff, to make foreign imports unreasonably expensive to Southerners. So it was another case of exploitation of one connected group against the whole region of the country. That was the southern states. So in our day, the question is, what does this mean for us? Well, today we have a similar situation. There's a neo-feudal, neo-colonial system of exploitation put into place by the good people, as I like to call them, the same good people who are responsible for the weather management activities that we have today over the city. For your good, well, maybe I'll let you think about whether inhaling coal fly ash in America's marvelous recycling operation is good for you. It may be good for you, but there's a good chance that it's not. The same with financial exploitation. Now, Charles Hugh Smith is one of my favorite writers, and he has a very lively blog. It's called of2minds.com. So some of what I say in the next minute or two is from him. And he describes, he's been describing the European Union, how it was a way of having colonialism, not by reaching out to foreign shores, but by having colonialism, exploitation, and cartelized markets within the country. Right? You don't have to go to, if you're France, to Morocco to exploit the people of Morocco with markets and commodities. You do it internally, right? You do it internal to your own nation. And the neo-colonial system, the old colonial system faded out from the 40s to the 60s. And what happened in the 60s was the world shift to paper money. That allowed the financialization of economies, which once were based on production and interest and human capital, human labor, and on commodities, right? It allowed the financialization of the economies in the United States and in Europe, allowed for colonialism to be done internally by financial instruments, by the use of credit and debt. And what we have now is a bubble grown in the past 50 years to gigantic proportions, one that is ready to pop, one that has excluded no country in the world. Every country is part of it in one fashion or another. Smith says that, in essence, the core nations of the EU colonized the peripheral nations via the financializing euro. That was, again, the European Union was a way of organizing the principles' efforts against the common people, the taxpayers in all the countries, and then the governments and the taxpayers in the peripheral nations, such as Greece, right? Greece and Portugal would be the examples of those who are being exploited. They're being exploited while they think they're exploiting the system, right? All these Greeks with their very long holidays, early retirements, and guaranteed incomes on government payrolls, they all thought that they were exploiting the system, but really they were being exploited by the system. He says the banks and exporters of the core countries extracted enormous profits from this expansion of debt and consumption. Now that the financialization scheme of the euro has run its course, the periphery's neo-feudal standing is starkly revealed. The assets and income of the periphery are flowing to the core as interest on the private and sovereign debts that are owed to the core countries' commercial and central banks. This is the perfection of neo-feudalism. The peripheral nations of the EU are effectively neo-colonial debtors of the core countries' banks, and the taxpayers of the core nations are now feudal serfs whose labor is devoted to making good on any bank loans to the periphery that go bad. And of course, that is the whole bailout scheme that is behind, that backs every banking sector, every bank, the banking cartel in this country, here in Chattanooga and in Howland County, and in the country as a whole, and in Europe. The winners in neocolonialism are, of course, the banks, rich families, deep states, and the losers are the taxpayers in the core. We're a core country, and we are. If you're a taxpayer, you are the victim, and peripheral states and their people. We have, of course, many peripheral states connected to our government by occupation of foreign countries, wars in foreign countries, and trade agreements as well. The core exploits the periphery. It strip mines the periphery. And how do we, in a way that the problem is too big to understand? I don't think I understand it really adequately, though I have read for years into these questions and studied free market literature and agrarian writers as well to see what some of the solutions may be. I think the solution is that we have to have, well, let's see. Well, we have to have an understanding of the problem, first of all. And then I think the second part is to physicalize or make physical, to liquidate abstract assets held afar, which are not actually yours. If you're an investor and have a computer share or some other house managing your abstract shares, if you don't have a certificate, you are actually not the owner. And these things can be taken from you at a whim. There have been stark examples in the past 15 years of that happening. My solution to neocolonialism, to being the debt serf, is to understand, first of all, that that's happening, and then once you understand that, to realize that you need to focus locally. You need to go back to the physical world, and part of that would be create more creation of not just financial capital, but personal capital and social capital as well. These include knowledge of new fields, knowledge of skills. They include relationships with people who are your superiors, equals, and then your inferiors, as well as you give away social capital and help create community. Community, an abused word for sure in the media, which uses community and leader meaninglessly. But I think that if we think in terms of Chattanooga, be Chattanooga-centric, loco-centric, we're closer to reducing the damage of being strip mined by the Hillarys and the Trumps of this world. They are out there, And though I would certainly say Trump is much, much less damaging to the future of the country than Hillary. If Hillary is elected, there is disaster much closer ahead. If Trump is elected, the establishment is all in an uproar, and he is going to make some good points. He's going to make some great points, but he can't stop the fire, right? There's a fire coming that's going to liquidate all this malinvestment. He can't stop that. This is David Tulis. We're going to talk to a real candidate in just a minute.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Here's what advertisers are saying about AM 1240. HotNewsTalkRadio.com.
Radio station, they really care. They're always calling me probably once a week, checking on me, seeing how things going, see if they want to change any of the ads or do anything different, seeing what my needs are. Gotten business off the ads that you do for me, and seems to be working well at this point.
Prices were very fair. Areas in this town that we aren't able to get other ways, your radio station is able to help us out, and I really appreciate that.
We've been very pleased with the services we've got. It seems like everybody over there cares about what they're going to do, how it's going to work for us on this end. And we've been very impressed with the creativity of the ads that we've heard. And they always seem to be right on point, even without us having to come up with what's going to be said.
I've been doing business with News Talk Radio for quite some time. It's the best place and the best value you can get for your advertisement. The commercials are great. They're very professional. I was actually blown away.
The commercial that they put together was awesome. It was way far above all the other radio stations we've dealt with. The best we've had yet, guarantee you, by far.
AM 1240, HotNewsTalkRadio.com gets results. Let us get results for your business. For no obligation free consultation, call General Sales Manager Steve Johnson. Call 423-240-5459. That's 240-5459. Or you can always email Steve at NoogaRadiosteve@gmail.com. That's NoogaRadiosteve@gmail.com. AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. We get results.
At Iyer Optical, it's a well-known fact. When you buy one pair of glasses, you get a second pair absolutely free. But did you know Iyer Optical has the largest eyeglass selection in the area, with top-name brands and styles in the latest trends? Schedule your appointment with one of the doctors today for a comprehensive eye exam. And remember, when you buy one pair of glasses, you get a second pair absolutely free. Visit IyerOptical.com for a location near you.
The NASCAR racer's ideal is quality and excellence. So is mine. Hi, David Tulis here. My pit crew is S&S Auto Repair. I've taken Toyotas and Hondas to S&S for 13 years, even though it's way out of my way. I like being treated fairly, like a neighbor. S&S specializes in Toyota and Lexus, Honda, Acura, Scion, Nissan, and Infiniti. Make an appointment today and get a free 4-inch combat knife as a gift. 855-3436. SSAutorepair.net. 855-3436.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
When you crack your screen, mess up your charge port, you get soaked in a rainstorm, what do? Save money, save big. Fix it. Get surgery. There's a cell phone hospital near you. It's the Cell Surgeon. Adam Disbrow, the man in white, he replaces your screen, fixes your buttons, gives you back Twitter, Facebook, your online universe. Walk-in patients go to Cell Surgeon in Ooltewah. Cell Surgeon is new in Ooltewah, next to Zaxby's. Other docs in the cell repair business are just lab coats. The doc at Cell Surgeon is the best. He wants you to be happy, fix your phone, save money, and save time. Every minute is valuable, and Cell Surgeon doesn't want to waste a second. Your wireless MD, the Cell Surgeon. Quick and precise with your device. Takes an hour or less. Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon next to Old Chicago Pizza. 900-8263. TheCellSurgeon.com. Like him on Facebook.
You used to call me on my... You used to.
Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. New accusations against Mayor Andy Burke coming to light. Bobby Stone, the husband of a woman who's a top aide to Mayor Andy Burke, is accusing his wife of having an affair with the mayor. He claims that she told him the two went to a hotel in New York, and that's where they shared a kiss. Mayor Burke and Lacey Stone both deny these allegations. A domestic dispute between two Chattanooga police officers has led to one being put on leave with pay Police Sergeant Marvin Scott Kreider has been relieved of his law enforcement duties while the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is investigating claims that he abused his ex-girlfriend, who is also a city police officer. Tennessee House Representative Mike Carter from the Harrison area has announced that he'll be running for the majority leader in the House for Tennessee. Representative Carter from Harrison is hoping to replace the position of Representative Gerald McCormick from Hickson, who stepped down. And Donald Trump's campaign bus is expected to arrive in Chattanooga about 3 o'clock in the evening. If it's going on the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You expect lots of sunshine and great-looking weather through your afternoon. Slowly warming up, highs lower to middle 70s. Tonight, clear, not as cool, lows mid and upper 40s. For Monday, another great-looking day. Lots of sunshine. The warming trend continues. Upper 70s continue dry and warm Tuesday. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily, locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, Ringgold, and now 5203 Brainerd Road. That's Guthrie's. And I'm Source 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ford. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
This is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time. We are here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, the station for the man who matters, the multimedia platform. This show brought to you by Nooganomics.com. Nooganomics, the website that covers local economy and the free market here in Chattanooga and beyond. There is a Constitution Party, and it has a presidential candidate, Darrell Castle, who is a write-in candidate on your ballot. If you want to check the write-in box, you have to check the box and then write his name in if you think that he would be a true alternative presidentially to either Mr. Trump or Mrs. Clinton. The party has also local candidates, and one running as an independent on the Tennessee ballot is Mike Warner. Mike Warner is a former military man. He is 62. He's married. His wife, he married as a widower. He married a widow. Her name is Pat, and they have 7 children, though not together. He's a veteran, and his website is electavet.com. That's electavet.com. And you ask yourself, why would we care here in Chattanooga about a man who's not local, whose name we've not heard? Well, I'll make the case that it does matter. If you elect a constitutionalist to the state house or to the Senate, you're going to have the prospect of your ideas and your concerns about the state versus the government, and the government and the state versus the people more likely to be addressed. So, Mike Warner, you are in Clarksville, Tennessee, in Montgomery County, and you're on the ballot as independent. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing on the campaign trail. What are you saying, and how are you making inroads against your competitor? And tell us a little bit about the opposition in your race.
Well, the opposition in my race has been in the Tennessee General Assembly for 10 years. And personally, I believe in term limits, and I think 10 years is enough for anybody. But over and above that, when they redistricted, this district was cut out for Democrats, really, or what they really did is they cut all the put all the Democrats they could into and away from those places that were held by Republicans. So a lot of the things that I need to talk about in order to gain traction need to be things that actually register with what you'd consider to be Democrat voters. But I can't do that unless I do it from a constitutional point of view. And so some of the things we've talked about are the same things you've been talking about, the 14,223 Montgomery County residents that lost their driver's license for failure to pay so-called court costs, and some other issues that actually shouldn't be an issue of party, ought to be an issue of taking care of people. And so that's been my primary emphasis through this campaign so far.
So you're saying that your arguments as a constitutionalist-minded candidate resonate with the well, we don't want to say the left, but we can say with voters who identify themselves as Democratic or maybe left-leaning, and that would be this this seizure of licenses.
Absolutely.
Now my listener may have read the work that we've done at Nooganomics.com about this this crisis in your county. What happened, just briefly, to affect the driver's licenses of 14,000 people?
Well, 8% of Montgomery County had their driver's license taken away for failure to pay court costs. And there's a number of issues that are problematic about what they've done. First of all, I don't think what they've done is constitutional within the state constitution. I also believe that perhaps some of those that have been nailed with this are had their well, that they were in court and sent to jail prior to this becoming a law. It may be an post facto application of the law. But what it is if people in Montgomery County or whichever county they got sentenced to, some don't always are incarcerated here. But if they were incarcerated, Montgomery County has put the cost of housing them while they're inmates on them. And in one case, a young man owes $26,080 or something close to that, in addition to all the other court costs. And after he's already served his time, he gets out. And if he had a job, he now can't get to it because he doesn't have a driver's license. For a single, there's a single mom, at least one, there's probably more, but I know of one single mom who is in this predicament. And as a result of losing their driver's license and these things, because of she owes a total of $50,000 before she can get her driver's license back, they're actually looking at taking her children away from her. So it's not just well, they were bad people and they should have to pay their own freight. There's a lot more involved in that. We're actually, when you take somebody and place them in a position where they're in a deep hole they can't dig out of and stick a boulder on top of them, what you've done is you've created a permanent criminal class. What other option do they possibly have other than being criminal or being, dependent on the state? So we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Tennessee is the 10th highest incarcerator state in America, and America is the number one country in the world for jailing its people. So we're 10th from the worst in the whole world in Tennessee, and I just think that's untenable.
This is David
we're
Tulis.
also
We're
the
talking
fifth
with
most
Mike Warner.
dangerous state for crime and for safety, and that includes job safety and road travel and other things. But I think part of the criminal class we're creating is creating some of those dangers. We're also the third most dependent state on federal dollars. Over 50% of Tennessee's annual budget comes from federal money. And for a so-called red state to be in that position is nuts. It reflects that they haven't been paying attention, or even worse, they've actually been working towards getting us in a position where the federal government has undue influence over our General Assembly. That is the result of it, at any rate.
Well, is there enough character in the General Assembly, Mike Warner of the Constitution Party, running as an independent candidate in the Clarksville, Fort Campbell area? Is there enough character in the General Assembly to defy the federal power at some point to say, we're not taking this money because we would like to decide our own future, we would like to have some self-government on these points, and we're going to forego? Is that possible, or is it simply, well, we can't do without a few $1 million here or $60 million there, therefore we will continue to obey by agreement?
Well, I think it's a process. I don't think we can do it in one session. But it's something that we need to be aiming for. We need to be aiming away from being more and more dependent. And that probably can't be done overnight, but it needs to be the target. And I would say probably there's maybe 25% of the House, and I'm not real sure about the Senate. I know Mark Green would definitely be on my side of this issue. He's my state senator, and I was helping him campaign when I took a tangent 3 elections ago to start running against my current opponent. But there are people who recognize what this is, and you wonder why it is. The ink wasn't even dry on the opinion by the Supreme Court about the gay marriage issue, and our governor folded without so much of as talking to the General Assembly or anything else. Just made a decision that, okay, we're going to do marriage licenses now for.
Mike Warner, what do you think about that? What is your take on the governor's delinquency in that? What in your idea as a constitutionalist, what should he have done?
Well, what
are the options?
What he should have done is called a special session of the General Assembly, and we have a duty. We have the authority and the duty to say, not in our state. We will not comply. The Supreme Court gave itself the authority to do judicial review. It's not in the Constitution. And so what people, and we've got a lot of them in the General Assembly that say, well, the Supreme Court has spoken, and so there's nothing else we can do. But that's not the Constitution. That's something that the courts themselves have created this niche for themselves that does not legally exist within the Constitution. We all they can do is give an opinion. They cannot make law. And so if the governor didn't have the guts to do what he should do as our executive within the state and comply with our state constitution, then he should have allowed our General Assembly to do it. But much of what goes on in the General Assembly is controlled like puppet strings, especially within the committees. It just is a never-ending thing. We've more good bills are killed in committee than anywhere else. It's and the people that are in committee are there because they're trusted by the establishment. The governor doesn't directly appoint them, but for instance, the NRA goes to Speaker Harwell to find out who they should give money to for their campaign. Now, she's never voted for a pro-gun bill in her life, and she will quickly tell you that she can't because she would not get reelected again because of her district.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Mike Warner of the Constitution Party. He is a representative of that party and is running as an independent candidate in the Clarksville, Fort Campbell area in Montgomery County. Now, I have an interview with him, and I want you to just hear what he has to say because he is someone you can support. He is someone who reflects much better than Patsy Hazelwood or Todd Gardenhire or others in the Chattanooga area who are just conservatives, right? They're just dreary conservatives. He much better reflects your interest as a pro-Constitution, pro-government listener of AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. His name is Mike Warner. Mike Warner, and you can find him online at electavet.com. That's electavet.com, or more prosaically, electmikewarner.com. Mike, you're a member. You're a local director of the Tennessee Firearms Association, the TFA. What humiliation did firearms owners face this last session? What happened, and what would you have done differently had you been in the General Assembly?
Just real quickly, though, are you saying elect the vet? It's supposed to be elect THE vet.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, elect the vet.
But no, elect a vet. Elect the vet,
Okay.
because there's no other veteran running in this race.
Okay, so let me restate that for the listener. Elect the vet. That's electthevet.com. Go ahead.
Yeah, but our bills, we've had an open carry bill and a constitutional carry bill. Every state that touches Tennessee, with the exception of Georgia, has some form of open carry. And in fact, Missouri just went to constitutional carry. Now, the difference between those is open carry allows anyone who is of age and has the right to own a gun to wear it openly. Okay, constitutional carry says that the Constitution is your permit. And again, if you're legally allowed to own a gun, you're allowed to carry it either open or concealed without a permit. And Missouri has recently done that. Now, you don't hear in any of those states about shoot-ups from people going armed, carrying arms. But in Tennessee, technically, even if you have a permit, they can take your gun away from you. The law enforcement can take your gun away from you, because all that permit is a defense against prosecution. And they can say, well, you were wearing your gun for the purpose of going armed. That's actually in the Constitution. That's something they put in there many years ago in order to make sure that black folks didn't carry guns. Okay,
right.
That was the purpose of that being in there. And it also says in there in the Constitution that the legislature shall have the right to legislate the wearing of arms with a view towards reducing crime. Well, there was a lawsuit, again, some time ago. I believe it was in the 1800s. But it's the only lawsuit about this, a court decision about this in the Tennessee Supreme Court, that said, well, if the legislature is going to regulate the wearing of arms, it must be able to show that it actually has a purpose that deters crime. Okay, now I don't know what kind of law you could make that would actually do that. But
what are you saying? What are you saying then? What's your point?
What I'm saying is they don't give a darn about the Constitution, either of the United States or Tennessee. The Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. That's pretty specific and broad. You cannot infringe the right of a legally abiding person to wear arms according to the U.S. Constitution. And according to the 14th Amendment, the Constitution also applies to the states as well as to the federal government. So at any rate, what happens is the bills go into committee. They get killed in committee, where there may be even fewer people in the committee that vote no on the bill than there are sponsors for the bill, but it can never come to the floor. It can never be debated, and probably your legislator will never get to vote on it.
What other issues, Mike Warner, would you say are important for a constitutionalist to consider as a legislative matter? What about, let me just throw one at you, what about civil asset forfeiture?
Well, I'm glad you asked about that, because that is also a major problem in the state of Tennessee. We got a D- as a grade for our civil forfeiture. We have some of the most oppressive laws in that regard. And even though the Supreme Court has given their opinion that the asset forfeiture is constitutional, as I said, the judicial review was created by them for them and isn't the last word. The way the founders designed our nation and our representative constitutional republic was everyone would be a check. Even every citizen, a constitutional sheriff can tell the feds where to go legally, unless they've entered into agreements with them. And even then, really, they could. But just for instance, it violates the due process clause of both the Fifth and 14th Amendments. The Fifth Amendment reads, "No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law." The Section 1 of the 14th Amendment applies similarly. The provision states that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process. We've also got the takings clause in the Fifth Amendment, which usually, they refer to that when they take your land in order to build a road or something like that, but it still applies here. The Fifth Amendment includes the clause that nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So if they're going to take your property, they should be compensating you for it. So
this is David Tulis. We're talking with Mike Warner, who is on the ballot in the Clarksville area, running for state house. You can reach his website at electthevet.com. That's electthevet.com. Find out more about him. I suggest if you care about the Constitution, you, my listeners, should write a nice check. Mike, thanks very much for chatting with us.
Thank you very much.
Mike is a constitutionalist, one of the few running for office. Around Chattanooga, there are none running for office. This is David Tulis.
News Talk 1240 AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, with your chance to win $124 in cash and $124 in food every week with the Hot News Talk Radio 1, 2, 3 NASCAR contest. Hot News Talk 1240. All you have to do is guess who's going to be first, second, and third place in the upcoming NASCAR Sprint Cup race. If you guess it, you'll hear your name live Monday morning at 11:30. Then call AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio to win. Enter your guess right now at Rick Davis Golden Diamonds, 5301 Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. Diesel Off-Road Technology Saudi Daisy for your four-wheel drive and truck needs. Stuff and upholstery with premium rubber foam. Amigos Mexican Restaurant next to Staples and Hickson. Drink specials during the race. Cell Surgeon, the Broken Screen Doc. And Shooter's Supply, 4824 Hickson Pike in Hickson. Hot News Talk 1240. Enter your guesses now and then listen to the race live to win $124 in cash and $124 in food from Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station. Hot News Talk 1240.
I love NASCAR.
We're at the Cantina at Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Yes, ma'am. 2 orders of nachos with beef and beans and 2 beers. Chattanooga loves its Amigos restaurants, but the Amigos in Hickson has something extra. NCAA, the week's big game. How about a house wine? Really good. Big name beers. Just tell Maria what you want. And here at Amigos, margaritas are popular. And well, it's only $3 a day. If you come here on a game day, Saturday, a Natty Light is only $2.25. Here at Amigos, just during NCAA, Natty Light, $2.25. Amigos Mexican Restaurant in Hickson. The happy hour is 3 to 9 today and every day. I'd say the atmosphere is festive. Look at that huge TV. It's like being amid the fans under a bright sun, but without all the heat. Stay cool. Quench your thirst. Amigos, between the Staples and Hobby Lobby. Take the table next to mine and enjoy the great NCAA game with friend or family here at the Cantina at Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Okay, it's starting. The NASCAR racer's ideal is quality and excellence. So is mine. Hi, David Tulis here. My pit crew is S&S Auto Repair. I've taken Toyotas and Hondas to S&S for 13 years, even though it's way out of my way. I like being treated fairly, like a neighbor. S&S specializes in Toyota and Lexus, Honda, Acura, Scion, Nissan, and Infiniti. Make an appointment today and get a free 4-inch combat knife as a gift. 855-3436. ssautorepair.net. 855-3436.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north! Gotta burn my boots.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy.
Chattanooga. CBS News, I'm Jim Taylor. 15 days till the election, and where's Donald? Where's Hillary?
Where these candidates are tells you all about where the race is. Donald Trump is in Florida, a must-win state for him in a state he's trailing. Hillary Clinton is going to New Hampshire. She has a pretty safe lead in New Hampshire, 8 points in the Real Clear Politics average, but it's a state where they hope to defeat Kelly Ayotte and get a Democratic in that Senate seat.
USA Today Washington Bureau Chief Susan Page on CBS This Morning.
I'm Peter King in Orlando. Early voting starts in 58 of Florida's 67 counties today. Voters have requested more than 3 million absentee ballots. That's a record, and more than a third of the vote total from 4 years ago. Of course, we won't know who votes for whom exactly, but we will get an idea of who is voting party by party. That's important for the campaigns, who may adjust their spending and the time their candidates spend here. So far, Trump and Clinton have spent an estimated $60 million on TV ads in Florida. They're expected to be here often during the next 2 weeks.
A decade after signing up to serve in Iraq and Afghanistan, nearly 10,000 California National Guard soldiers are being ordered to repay huge reenlistment bonuses. Here's Congressman Kevin McCarthy.
To me, it is just wrong. These people should be treated like heroes, not tax cheats.
He wants those debts forgiven, and he is expected to introduce legislation to that effect. Tom Hayden is dead. He was a radical, one of the notorious Chicago Seven, on trial for conspiring to riot at the 1968 Democratic Convention there. CBS News political consultant Leonard Steinhorn remembers.
He was an activist. He was an activist for civil rights. He was an activist against the war in Vietnam. He was an activist for economic justice.
Tom Hayden was 76. 13 people killed on the bus that officials say was speeding when it plowed into a big rig on a freeway near Palm Springs. But from CBS News transportation safety analyst Mark Rosenkirk.
This vehicle was built in 1996. So the chances of having an electronic recorder on board to give the data is probably relatively slim.
And NTSB investigators are arriving on that scene today. Women wearing yoga pants, about 300 of them parading in Rhode Island this past weekend, right past the home of a man who wrote the local newspaper that women over 20 ought not to wear them. Organizer Jamie Burke.
It speaks to the need for us to stand up for our rights to wear what we want.
William Shakespeare did not work alone.
Welcome, High Prince.
Henry VI Part 1 by William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe. The next edition of the definitive New Oxford Shakespeare will list Marlowe as co-writer of all 3 Henry VI dramas. The publishers say there's a growing scholarly consensus that Shakespeare had collaborators on as many as 17 of his plays. Vicki Barker, CBS News, London.
Wall Street open just over half an hour now. The Dow is up 100 points, NASDAQ up 45. This is CBS News.
Fire the stockbroker and hire yourself. I'm Larry Levin, and I've been on the trading floor for 23 years. I was one of the biggest traders in the S&P pit. I'm also the president of Trading Advantage, a leading educational firm teaching people how to become professional day traders. Now, for a limited time, I'm offering one of the trading techniques I use to make $1.9 million for free. Get started right now by calling 800-288-0092. Leave your email address on my voicemail, and I'll email you my free trading technique and my daily insider market report at no cost to you. This is the very information I use to build my fortune.
I was getting ready to retire. I still needed to make extra income, but I didn't want to work for anyone else. Because of Larry and his excellent instructors, I could trade successfully for myself, and I'll never have to work for someone else again.
Fire the stockbroker and hire the most dependable person you know, you. Again, call in the next 90 minutes and leave your email address on my voicemail. Call 800-288-0092. That's 800-288-0092.
Preventing SIDS, CBS News correspondent Barry Bagnato on the Health Watch.
The American Academy of Pediatrics says sudden infant deaths can be prevented if new infants share their parents' rooms for up to a year and are placed on their backs in a crib or bassinet.
The baby should never be left to sleep on sofas or armchairs.
Breastfeeding cuts the risk by about half using pacifiers.
Studies have shown there's as much as a 90% decrease in risk.
University of Virginia Dr. Rachel Moon.
At the Smithsonian, they are over the rainbow after reaching their fundraising goal to help preserve a pair of ruby slippers from the Wizard of Oz. Smithsonian launched a Kickstarter campaign just last week to raise the $300,000 to help preserve the shoes that whisked Dorothy back to Kansas at the end of the movie. Officials say they reached the goal late last night. 5,300 supporters in 41 countries. I'm Jim Taylor, CBS News.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We spent lots of sunshine and great-looking weather through your afternoons. Slowly warming up, highs lower to middle 70s. Tonight, clear, not as cool, lows mid and upper 40s. For Monday, another great-looking day. Lots of sunshine. The warming trend continues. Upper 70s continue dry and warm Tuesday. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, Ringgold, and now 5203 Brainerd Road. That's Guthrie's. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Pat Report.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Martin Truex Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott Powers around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocked him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station. Hot News Talk 1240.
The voice of NASCAR.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's David Tulis.
A circuit court judge in Nashville on Friday ruled that Nashville ordinance on Airbnb was unconstitutional because it was so complex, no one could really understand when he was in compliance with it. Because the definition of short-term rental property is subject to multiple interpretations, the court finds that an ordinary person of average intelligence would not be able to understand the distinctions between short-term rentals, hotels, bed and breakfast, sporting houses, hostels, etc., says Kelvin Jones Friday in an opinion regarding the suit by the Beacon Center on behalf of a young couple that PJ and Rachel Anderson, who argued that the ordinance infringed on their rights. The judge said that that cartels and monopolies are okay if they're for the public good. However, in his opinion, he agrees with the Metro attorney Catherine Pham, according to the Tennessean, a story published in the Sunday Times Free Press. He agreed that the 3% cap per neighborhood on non-owner occupied rentals did not violate the equal protection laws. He said the law created a monopoly, but one that was permissible because it was for the well-being of citizens. Notice there, always the excuse for monopolies and cartels is that there's some general benefit that we're going to see that affects all for the good. Though often we'll find that when you have a cartel or monopoly granted by law, ordinance, or here in a court opinion, there are inefficiencies that come in eventually and make that market impossible. They make it unattractive and of little use to the public. Braden Busek is the director of litigation for Beacon Center. He says, I admit this is an incoherent mess. There's simply no way to make sense out of this, and every Nashvilleian could find themselves in a bind where Metro can arbitrarily say you're a short-term rental one day and a hotel the next. The law requires, according to the Tennessean story, requires Airbnb hosts to apply for city permits to operate and pay the same level of taxes as hotels and motels. Of course, hotel taxes are exploitative of foreigners. That's what as the Lord Jesus said, whom is taxed the sons? No, strangers are taxed. And so you have the principle in operation in Chattanooga and elsewhere where heavy taxes into the 20 to 25% range transaction tax are piled on for the visitor. That's the visitor pays the tax, and the man at home does not. But of course, we have that rule recognized, but we still tax sons and the people, and not the strangers and the aliens, as that quote from the Lord implies. On Tuesday, according to Chattanooga.com, there's going to be a taking up of the ordinance for Chattanooga homeowners who want to rent out their houses in their absence, and that's going to be up for consideration after, he says, several public hearings and extensive discussion by the city council and members of the staff. Now, John Wilson summarizes as follows: the operators pay a $125 non-refundable application fee to the Land Development Office. They obtain a code compliance verification form, and on that form they simply state, under penalty of perjury, no doubt, that the house is in compliance with zoning, building, health, life safety code provisions, and have smoke alarms. The operator has to have a business license and agrees to collect all taxes. Now that is that's a grief, no doubt. And the free market would say there should be no regulation at all, because the people involved in Airbnb are simply providing a service to the benefit of travelers, right? To the benefit of travelers. And they should not be having to collect taxes. They should not be sort of strong-armed into being collection agents for county government or city government or the state. They should simply be able to operate privately through their network connections with Airbnb. Airbnb collects a fee from the credit card or debit card transactions that pay for the stay. And so that should be the only tax that's paid by the homeowner to the network provider that arranges for the call to come in. Hi, we are the Yanapurises from Sri Lanka. We are in New York now, and we would like to pass through Chattanooga to stay for 4 days and to visit the Signal Mountain, Lookout Mountain, the River Bend, the aquarium, and of course we want to hear David Tulis show on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and we want to hear it on the real radio signal, right? The AM signal. The Sri Lankans say, glad to be here, and so they're going to stay at an Airbnb. There should be no tax on that whatsoever. There is no provided by these homeowners, so why should there be a tax? This is a private relationship and a private arrangement. Well, this is David Tulis, and you don't have to be in Sri Lanka to hear me. You can hear me right here in Chattanooga. But if you are in a faraway place, if you're one of our viewers in China, where the Chinese people are trying to understand the free market and local economy, they can watch us on YouTube at the Hot News Talk Radio channel. We argue here that that near is better than far, that small is better than big, simple than complex. And down at 5-point type in the footnotes, we have that personal is better than corporate, physical than abstract. And if you boil it all down to the action step, right? Americans are always liking to have 8 steps or 5 steps. If you want to have a single point, that is the steps you need to take, it would be love your neighbor and buy local. And that implies all kinds of things, right? That implies buying your bank services local, investing in local capital, buying future prosperity from local people by investing in their businesses, remembering the truism out of the scriptures that Christians heard in detail about yesterday at church on the Lord's Day, that capital comes from character, and that character is best informed by God, and a close attention to the scriptures, the Holy Scriptures, which describe God's character and his demands through his law. God's law is a picture of his perfections, and that law is reflected through the commandments and of course all the case law in the Old Testament, and the implied or repeating of the case law that's relevant today in the New Testament. Of course, some forms of worship having been done away with by the arrival of the Lord Jesus Christ, the sovereign Savior of man, right? Who, now that he was here, did not have to be worshipped by the forms of the old covenant in the nation of Israel that looked forward, that anticipated the blood sacrifice that he made for not everyone, no, made for his people, that group chosen by election by God's sovereign grace not carelessly and fecklessly thrown about, but delivered successfully to each person that God intends to save. And that whole question of, whom are God's people? Do they choose themselves to be Christians, or are they chosen by God? And it's a great topic for discussion. And I hope on the Lord's Day that you, even though you may not be a churchgoer, you, my listener, that you consider those questions, because they are really important. Many Americans have a low view of God, and they say that God enables things to happen. He makes things happen, but he's really not sovereign. And he does not choose his own people. He does not elect them. They choose him, and God responds. God is constantly responding to things, and therefore has, I would say, if your God is not sovereign, then he is impotent, and is certainly not worth worshiping. Not worth going to worship on the first day of the week. There is more going on. There's a story about 6 dead in a Chattanooga County fire, and there are just a few details available. I'm looking at Kristen Hodges making notes here at WRCB.com. 6 people dead late Sunday night, and Sheriff Mark Schrader knows who they are, identifies them as, for the purposes of the press, as 2 adults and 4 children off Old Highway 27 north of Tryon. And there's a fire in East Chattanooga on Saturday. The hot baseboard heater catching something too near on fire and throwing a family out of 7 children. The one room is a wreck. The rest of the house, smoke and water damaged. Fires are to be controlled. And my name is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time. I asked Mike Warner, the candidate for the State House in Clarksville. I think there are not constitutional candidates in Tennessee but him. I am not aware of others. Those here in the Chattanooga area have not shown themselves to be constitutional minded at all. I've had some very hard words for Todd Gardenhire. If you go to Nooganomics.com, you can see my analysis of the many things that he ignores while he is trying to make adjustments to the state scheme of schooling at the university level. He's done quite a bit of work there, but these are not issues that touch on the vitals of liberty and constitutional government. Todd Gardenhire is not about restoring lost rights, even among those people who are a minority who do not have any pull in the legislature. Right, and those would be, for example, the victims of highway robbery. Now, we have highway robbery today. We have bandits today. The only bandits that are in operation currently in the state of Tennessee are state operators. They are sheriff's deputies, town police forces, police departments, and joint drug task forces who are going after joints. Right, that's their joint drug task force, because joints are what they're after, and they are a combination of law enforcement going after people on the highway, and they are the highway robbers of today. They profile people. They trail after them at very close proximity to their rear bumpers to scare them into doing something like making a turn without using an indicator, right, or crossing the white line. And there they have a probable cause for a stop, and they assume that the driver and the passenger, the man behind the wheel, and his companion are not aware of their constitutional rights, and so incapable of defending them. And that's often what happens. A grant is given to search, and guess what? Cash goes to the cops. A bag full of medications goes to the cops. Records go to the cop. Jewelry goes to the cops to help fund the great war on drugs. There's a story, just an amazing story about civil asset forfeiture that Mike Warner opposes. out of Michigan where there's an armed raid. Just astounding. These armed raids are simply astounding. They should be outlawed. They should be stricken from the prospect of an operations manual. That those pages should come out, and it may require more constitutional candidates that we have running for office today. But as I mentioned, I just want to give you a website here. The name of this gentleman is Mike Warner. Mike Warner, electthevet.com. That's electthevet.com. He's a veteran in the Fort Campbell area and has his hand on important points that are overlooked by Republicans. Right? Republicans do not care about constitutional liberty on the whole, and so whether it's a Patsy Hazelwood or a Todd Gardenhire, these are people who are simply making the machine run, and they'd like to continue running silently with the offenses of the judicial industrial complex, for example, continuing to run the poor people in our city to the ground. They are running them to the ground. In Montgomery County, just in case you missed it, covered in detail at Nooganomics.com, we had a lightning bolt out of the Department of Safety upon 14,223 people in that one county. 8% of the adults in that county who lost their licenses or received notices of revocation because they had not paid fines. One man who's been in jail for misdemeanor theft, right, a theft under $500, came out with a $26,080 fine. Now, how's he going to pay that? Well, if you don't pay your fines in Tennessee, guess what? You can't operate a motor vehicle, and that's a whole other question, which I can't mention right now. But you have a right to travel by car or truck if you're not in commerce and are doing it privately. You do have that right, and we need to have in Tennessee a case that litigates that issue before the high court, because the state, the Republican and Democratic majorities, as they come and go, have consistently pretended that right does not exist. And they all allow the Department of Safety, which is an executive branch agency of today, the Bill Haslam, executive branch agency, and all other town and county executive branch agencies that harass the free and charge them under the Title 5550, or the Driver's Licensing Act, the Commercial Driver's License Act, I should say. It is a commercial act, and everybody is tricked into taking part in that and yielding their constitutional right to travel for the privilege, as it rightly is called, the privilege of entering commerce and operating a motor vehicle. That is a commercial term describing the use of the road by truck or car user, the use of the road for commerce, right, for carrying people or goods for hire. That's what makes a commercial interest in trafficking on highways, the use of cars for commercial purposes. But Mike Warner and others at, again, electthevet.com, he's a man who's aware of this issue. Unlike most candidates, electthevet.com. You know what I'm thinking you should do? You, my listener, the man who matters, you should write him a check. Send him a check for his campaign. He's underfunded, but has made up for the lack of funding by being aggressive in going door to door in that county. So if he's elected to the state house, believe me, he will represent your interests and mine. The civil asset case in Michigan affect a family, Annette and Dale Shattuck. They had gone out for the evening, leaving their 4 children in the care of Annette's mother. And here, reading from a lawsuit, during the dynamic entry, armed DTF officers wearing ski masks separated the children from their grandmother at gunpoint, shouting at her to get the dog under control or they would shoot it. According to Sheriff Tim Donaldson, who oversees the task force responsible for raiding the Shattuck's home, the statement filed by the attorney is a misrepresentation of the incident. But if you look at an interview and hear more about this, the sheriff says, if you come in at a dynamic entry raid, you're going to aim that gun at the parents. Children are going to be sat at a couch. There's absolutely no way in hell would we point a gun at a child on a couch. Still, the Shattucks and their attorneys stand by their description of what happened on the night of the raid, adding, the deputies kept the children lined up on a couch at gunpoint, refusing even to remove their masks to help calm the children. These were all children under the age of 10. The mother says, if my kids are outside of my yard, they run into my house. If they see a police officer, they're petrified. Now, the problem with this grade is that the people involved were keeping the law. They've been studiously keeping the law, and they're facing a civil asset forfeiture, even though they were found to have done nothing wrong in the end. There had been a ballot initiative in Michigan in 2008. They decided to open a medical marijuana dispensary in 2014, legal in that state. They had made every effort to get permissions and licenses, and they even invited the Drug Task Force to take a tour. Now, that invitation got lost in the translation, and the DTF was under the impression that it had received an anonymous tip. And so, armed with probable cause from that tip, the operators execute a raid on the home. So, to make matters worse, the story says in FEE, the Free Enterprise Education, the Foundation for Economic Education. The story says, to make matters even worse for the Shaddocks under current civil asset forfeiture laws, law enforcement officials are not even required to return the seized property after criminal charges are dropped. This has created a profit motive for law enforcement officials, who are often allowed to keep up to 100% of confiscated property. In the end, a judge ruled in favor of the Shaddocks, citing their compliance with local and state laws and entrapment by estoppel by the DTF in his decision. Even though all charges have been dropped, the Shattuck family is still struggling to reclaim property from the agency. From the ceiling fan, boxes and bags of food had been pulled out from cabinets and stepped on with their big boots. Annette's lingerie was strewn everywhere. There was nothing that they didn't destroy. They ripped off facings of the cabinets. Every picture was off the wall, right? Looking for secret safes behind paintings. Though Sheriff Donaldson continues to deny that the raid was conducted in such a confrontational and destructive manner, pictures taken by the Shaddocks right after their home was raided appear to tell a story contradictory to that of the agency. Since law enforcement officials are not required to keep a record of the property they seize, it is easy for some items to become displaced, which is what happened to a birth certificate from Annette, the mother, and the couple's marriage certificate, and 2 of their children's insurance cards. And when things were returned, like phones, equipment, fax machines, and the like, guess what? No cords were with them. So you have your gear back, including your smashed phone, but there's no cord. Well, this is David Tulis, and our Hazelwoods and Garden Hires here in Chattanooga, and our state representatives need to think about these things. And I would suggest that it's up to you, my listener, if you care about the operation of the state and want to reduce its damage, I suggest that you bring these points up. Suggest that there's a constituency behind civil asset forfeiture, the highwayman economy, right? The highwayman is the state, and the highwayman can be your militarized, police-oriented sheriff's department, as in this case, sheriff's departments have taken on all the vices that police departments have, and there's no easy way out of this. I'm a writer and a journalist. Go to my website at Nooganomics.com. We heard yesterday at church a sermon about the incident in Luke chapter 11 when the Lord casts a demon from a man, and here's the verse 14. And he was casting out a demon, and it was mute. So it was, when the demon had gone out, that the mute spoke, and the multitudes marveled. Well, the point made in the sermon is that Satan and the world of Satan, God's enemy, and of course all of God's enemies, care about silence. Muteness is important. The inability to communicate is something that is satanic. And look at efforts today to make people shut up, to make people not use he and she anymore, to make people not say anything against lug butts and sodomites and buggers. The war against open speech, the war against questioning established narratives is continuing and has been going on for some long time. Well, I think that speech is wonderful, and free speech is especially wonderful. I think the duty of a man like me as a Christian is to say things, to tell the truth with a capital T, and that would be to affirm my conviction, my my story of repentance before God's commands that I've sinned against Him, and my claiming of His government, right? My acknowledging of His government and my submission and subjection to Him in love and grace, right, and obedience. That's one thing. That's the truth, right? That's the truth. But also true things. True things are reports that are overlooked. True things are analyses which are uplifting and innovating if they are rightly heard and rightly delivered. That's my goal here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, to give a true account of things, to say true things, right? And I really appreciate your giving me just a couple of minutes of your time as I try to do that. Now, we're going to look at something that's really amazing, and that is a story that came out a couple years ago in Atlantic Monthly about officer training. And it goes to the heart of the question about saving lives in Chattanooga, saving the lives of the innocent who do not deserve capital punishment at the hands of the state and its agents in blue, as Javariel Eagle was executed when he could have been talked out of his seemingly threatening gesture.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Here's what advertisers were saying about AM 1240. HotNewsTalkRadio.com.
Radio station, they really care. They're always calling me probably once a week, checking on me, seeing how things going, see if they want to change any of the ads or do anything different, seeing what my needs are. Gotten business off the ads that you do for me, and seems to be working well at this point.
Prices were very fair. Areas in this town that we aren't able to get other ways, your radio station is able to help us out, and I really appreciate that.
We've been very pleased with the services we've got. It seems like everybody over there cares about what they're going to do, how it's going to work for us on this end. And we've been very impressed with the creativity of the ads that we've heard. And they always seem to be right on point, even without us having to come up with what's going to be said.
I've been doing business with News Talk Radio for quite some time. It's the best place and the best value you can get for your advertisement. The commercials are great. They're very professional. I was actually blown away.
The commercial that they put together was awesome. It was way far above all the other radio stations we've dealt with. The best we've had yet, guarantee you, by far.
AM 1240 HotNewsTalkRadio.com gets results. Let us get results for your business. For no obligation free consultation, call General Sales Manager Steve Johnson. Call 423-240-5459. That's 240-5459. Or you can always email Steve at NoogaRadioSteve@gmail.com. That's NoogaRadioSteve@gmail.com. AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We get results.
We're at the Cantina at Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Yes, ma'am. 2 orders of nachos with beef and beans and 2 beers. Chattanooga loves its Amigos restaurants, but the Amigos in Hickson has something extra. NCAA, the week's big game. How about a house wine? Really good. Big name beers. Just tell Maria what you want. And here at Amigos, margaritas are popular. And it's only $3 a day. If you come here on a game day, Saturday, a Natty Light is only $2.25. Here at Amigos, just during NCAA, Natty Light, $2.25. Amigos Mexican Restaurant in Hickson. The happy hour is 3 to 9 today and every day. I'd say the atmosphere is festive. Look at that huge TV. It's like being amid the fans under a bright sun, but without all the heat. Stay cool. Quench your thirst. Amigos, between the Staples and Hobby Lobby. Take the table next to mine and enjoy the great NCAA game with friend or family here at the Cantina at Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Okay, shh, it's starting.
You used to call me on my cell phone.
When you crack your screen, mess up your charge port, you get soaked in a rainstorm, what do? Save money, save big, fix it, get surgery. There's a cell phone hospital near you. It's the Cell Surgeon. Adam Disbrow, the man in white, he replaces your screen, fixes your buttons, gives you back Twitter, Facebook, your online universe. Walk-in patients go to Cell Surgeon in Ottawa. Cell Surgeon is new in Ottawa, next to Zaxby's. Other docs in the cell repair business are just lab coats. The doc at Cell Surgeon is the best. He wants you to be happy, fix your phone, save money, and save time. Every minute is valuable, and Cell Surgeon doesn't want to waste a second. Your wireless MD, the Cell Surgeon, quick and precise with your device. Takes an hour or less. Northgate Mall, Cell Surgeon next to Old Chicago Pizza, 900-8263, thecellsurgeon.com. Like him on Facebook.
You used to call me on my... You used to.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd, right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. New accusations against Mayor Andy Burke coming to light. Bobby Stone, the husband of a woman who's a top aide to Mayor Andy Burke, is accusing his wife of having an affair with the mayor. He claims that she told him the two went to a hotel in New York, and that's where they shared a kiss. Mayor Burke and Lacey Stone both deny these allegations. A domestic dispute between two Chattanooga police officers has led to one being put on leave with pay. Police Sergeant Marvin Scott Kreider has been relieved of his law enforcement duties while the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is investigating claims that he abused his ex-girlfriend, who is also a city police officer. Tennessee House Representative Mike Carter from the Harrison area has announced that he'll be running for the majority leader in the House for Tennessee. Representative Carter from Harrison is hoping to replace the position of Representative Gerald McCormick from Hickson, who stepped down. And Donald Trump's campaign bus is expected to arrive in Chattanooga about 3 o'clock in the evening. It's going on the Tennessee Valley. It's going on Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Once I file an open records request, we can find out more about the training of police officers in Chattanooga. I have a request in on the piggybacking, I think, TV9's open records request for the training and policy manual for the city police department, and that should be a couple weeks out according to the city attorney's office. What I want to find out is not just the charging mechanisms under the statute which police officers impose upon members of the public. The police officer is, he represents the state. He's not a peacekeeper. He does not really care about that. He cares about the law. He's a law enforcer. This description is held with pride, and people proudly say, I'm in law enforcement. So that is what the police officers do. But they are organized, vertically organized as a kind of a corporation, delivering the law to the people, and often with death as a result. And the training in police departments around the country is probably pretty uniform, especially since we know that the CALEA standards, which is that the standards of an oversight organization, a certifying organization, those standards are part of the makeup of the department. The main point, the religious point, the point that's religiously taught to officers is the following: that you are to get home at the end of the shift. And the mantra is that you are to be vigilant at all times. You have to have a frontal assault mindset, if you will, that every individual is a threat and that complacency kills. These are the arguments that are drummed into the recruits and repeated before the officers depart from the conference room before at the beginning of the shift. We want to get home tonight, and every member of the public is a threat, and that is why. And when that training is believed by officers, that is why you have these police executions around the country. We have, I think, thus far this year I've not checked the website that tallies this, but about 800 police killings thus far this year, indicating that police are more dangerous to your life than a Muslim terrorist. You have more to fear from the police officer whose blue lights are flashing behind you than you have to fear of anyone at the Muslim temple over by Hamilton Place Mall. The people there are generally quiet Muslims. We know Islam has a world-conquering goal, but even so, we can lay that aside and say that you're more likely to be killed by a police officer, maybe 10 times more likely, or maybe 40 times more likely than you will be than you are by someone in an act of terrorism, whether domestic or foreign-based terrorism. Complacency kills, and the first rule of law enforcement is to get home at the end of the shift. Better to be judged by 12 in a criminal trial for murder or manslaughter if you're an officer than to be buried by 6. Those are simply cliches, but they are part of the making of police from local to national. Right, national economy is the thing that we are looking at here on the David Tulis program. National economy versus local economy. It is exploitative in many ways, as we consider the whole idea of neocolonialism, to which I'd like to get back. Hesitation is fatal. Hesitation is the thing that will kill you. And so even though you don't know what's in the man's hand, whether it's a billfold, whether it's a phone, or maybe it's just something he had in his hand that you can't identify, he's putting it down or he's picking it up, you have to kill him because you want to get home to the loving embrace of your wife, who's going to divorce you over your weird hours. You want to get home, and so you cannot hesitate. The training focuses, according to an important article in Atlantic Monthly that I'm just now getting to, how police training contributes to avoidable deaths. Police training will see a man near a car. You will see a man with his back turned, and maybe a man 20 feet away with a knife. And your police training will tell you these are when you have to fire, because the man with his back turned might spin around. Right? If his back is turned, he may be reaching into his belt for a pistol and can turn around and fire at you before you can assess what's in his hand once he turns around and shoot first. So you have to draw your gun now. You have to have your finger on the trigger because he's running away from you, right? And if he's running away from you, he could turn on you and shoot you in the chest. A man near a car, well, you told him to stop, and he's just reaching in to turn his engine off, right? Because he's about out of gas, or maybe he's got his billfold on the little vanity there between the two front seats. He's going to grab that. Not really thinking how it looks, right? He's a civilian, right? They're all civilians. He's not aware of how it looks to you, the law enforcer. And so you fire at him and drop him there by the front fender because he has endangered you, and you have been drilled to death that complacency is the cause of death. Now, the story in the Atlantic points out that this is a problem that can be rectified by training. I've read some other stories. There was a story this morning that I read from the Orange County Register that cites poor training and the warrior mentality among officers. And these works simply say, well, we have to change the training of police departments to avoid the problem of police executions. Think for a second about Javario Eagle, the black man who was having a mental episode. He had a weapon in his hand, I think it may have been a handgun, and he had his daughter by her hand, and he had stepped in and out of a black slum doorway several times, and he was finally, when the girl was cleared, he was shot down. He was shot down in 2 fusillades by Chattanooga City Police, who had surrounded him with about 10 cars. They were all crouching in combat positions, ready to fire on this man, as if a man, even though he's having an episode, will kill his own daughter. Right? Suddenly, he's impugned, Mr. Eagle, young man in his 20s, family man, impugned in his motives that he will kill his own daughter because he has a gun. He's not acting clearly. He has the girl's hand, and somehow he's going to shoot her. Right? Somehow he's going to shoot her. So rather than the innocent life of a girl be taken, we will kill in a form of capital punishment this man who is a non-combatant. Right? He's not a combatant. He's not a military person. This is not a military situation. They're in the housing project, and he is dead. And guess what? He is handcuffed as he's lying mortally wounded. He's handcuffed. And there is, of course, the inevitable delay of the ambulance getting there. And I just wonder why we do not see reform coming from our candidates. Now, the mayor candidates include Chris Long, who is a builder, a former builder, and an architectural consultant. It includes also Larry Groen, the city council member who has declared his candidacy and has already had his initial press meeting at the courthouse, at the mayor's, at the city hall city hall steps some recent afternoon. And then, of course, we have the incumbent Andy Burke. And one of my goals in covering the race, which will be decided next year in March, is to connect the activities of police departments with the mayor's office. The police are mayoral people. They serve the executive branch of city government. We heard from a professor, a UTC professor of note last week about the division of powers coming from the French philosopher Montesquieu, who wrote in the 1700s. Well, the division of powers is a way of dividing government so that it cannot become despotic. We have the ideal overwhelmed, of course, by circumstances, overwhelmed as early as 1940s in the war economy. But we have it here in city government. We have the tripartite government. We have the legislative branch, city council, judicial branch in sessions or city court, and then we have also the executive branch. And the agencies of the executive branch are many, just like out of Washington, and among them is the police department. Well, I don't think police training is enough. I would say that if we're going to reduce the number of deaths and violent encounters and the danger to the innocent public by police officers, there certainly needs to be more training. There needs to be a kind of training and de-escalation. Figuring out how to make it that you can have a conversation during an armed conflict that ends not with an ambulance, but with a handshake. That there be ways in which officers are not so self-important, not so concerned about saving their own skins. Don't forget, after all, a man who becomes a police officer has a sacrificial idea already in his mind. He's doing this job, going into this field because he wants to help people, right? He's willing to sacrifice his life for the innocent member of the public, right? It's not just the state. I think some officers don't realize that they are servants of the state, and when they die in the line of duty, it is a sacrifice for the state. But in their minds, because they're human beings, they view their sacrifices as given for the innocent, right? Given for helpless people in a flood, helpless people who are injured in a car accident, right? They are there to help those people overcome adversity. If someone's robbed or raped, the officer is there to catch the malefactor, right? There's a delight in making right an evil, right, or wrong, and that's what the officer wants to do. He wants to save people, and his sacrifice is not just with his calling is to help the innocent and to harass the evildoer, but also to die for the innocent if need be. There is something that I think in the hearts of many officers who go into service or come into service here in Chattanooga of dying for the innocent. So the question is, if you're an officer, are you willing to die for an innocent person?